and welcome to the CERTL Networks event on teaching at a community college. This is the first in our three-part series on exploring careers in teaching at a community college. It's a series that we've run a number of years now through our colleagues at University of California, Los Angeles. So in a minute, I will turn this over to our colleagues from UCLA. For now, though, I want to welcome folks to the CERTL network, since we find that people who attend our events are usually joining CERTL for the first time. We are the Center for the Integration of Research, Teaching, and Learning, and we're a network of 38 universities in the US and Canada working to make the sciences more diverse by changing how they're taught. That's a very broad scope. So we do that by running online courses, workshops, events like this to teach STEM grad students and postdocs about inclusive evidence-based teaching and learning with an approach that essentially shows how you can apply your research skills to your teaching to the benefit of both. And we know that community colleges are absolutely fundamental to the higher education landscape in this country. And so we're really excited to be able to offer this series again. I think this is our third year running it, third or fourth, that really is just designed to help introduce people who are considering these careers to these institutions, what it's like to teach at community colleges, what it's like to work with students there, what equity and diversity issues you see there. All of those topics we'll discuss in future sessions in this series. I want to invite people to learn more about us at our website. If you go there, you can also see the rest of the events in this series if you go to our upcoming events page. And with that, I will turn things over to Katie Dixie, who will be hosting today's session.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Kate. It's nice to meet all of you and to see some of you again. Welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, who you are, where you're coming from. And as you do that, I have a couple questions to start us off so we get to know you a little bit, who's in the audience. And I'm curious, why are you interested in joining us? Why did you join us today? And so maybe you definitely want to apply for a career at or position at a community college. Maybe you're interested in the career, but you're not sure yet. Maybe you haven't thought about it and you're just trying to get curious and see what it's all about, or maybe something else. And feel free to share that in the chat. And so you should see this poll pop up in front of you right now. We'll wait for a few more polls to come in. And so it looks like a lot of people are interested in the career, but they want to learn some more, which is great. Although there are a few people here who definitely want to apply and a few people who are just considering it, which is really great. And so I hope throughout this series and throughout this session, you'll get to learn a bit more about what it means to teach at a community college and what you can do to be a part of that. The second question here for you, and do you know anyone who teaches at a community college? Maybe you do, maybe not, I'm not sure, or other. Maybe you teach at a community college, and feel free to type that in the chat. All right. Like we have a good split here. Several people who do know folks at a community college and some who don't, which is great because now you're about to meet a few. So thank you all so much for joining us. And I want to do a quick introduction of myself and the other moderators. So my name is Katie Dixie. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am from the Southern California Regional Collaborative, which is part of the Includes Aspire Alliance, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. But I'm also based out of the University of California, Los Angeles, where I work in our STEM teaching center and also for our CERTL program at UCLA. Then I'll invite Kelly to introduce herself. She'll also be moderating with me.
Thank you, Katie. I'm Kelly Yoon Strathmore. I am an Aspire to Lead intern with the Southern California Regional Collaborative. I work with Katie in my internship, and I will be checking all the questions today as you put them in chat. So that's what I'll be doing.
Thank you. And Kate already introduced herself. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, welcome everyone. It's great to have you here.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, Kate, for all your support through this and through our previous programs as well. As she mentioned, we've done this particular event several times, and so we're excited for this particular time to hear some more exciting information from our different panelists. So I just want to give you a little bit of information and background about the series. It's a three-part series. And so what we'll do is we'll be hearing from panels of current and former, maybe future faculty about the joys and challenges of teaching at a community college. But in addition to that, really thinking about the diversity of their students and their courses and how that enhances their learning of the students. And then also think about the ins and outs of how you find a full-time position and really what it is that it means to teach at a community college. Now we have 2 more webinars in this series coming up, and we hope you'll join us for those 2. So the first being getting hired at a community college, where you'll learn some tips and strategies about hiring and how you can be a competitive applicant. And that will be November 10th. And then we also have one on diversity, equity, and inclusive teaching at a community college. And that's a really great event where you get to learn more about the student body and their needs and some of the ways that you can be an diverse and an equitable and inclusive teacher. And so that will be on December 1st. As I mentioned, I am from the Aspire National Alliance. And what that is it's this national initiative that's really working towards inclusive and diverse STEM faculty. And so it works together with people across the country from lots of different organizations and schools. And so what they really try to do is increase the learning persistence and completion rates of students from underrepresented groups in college or university in STEM. And so this is to help kind of increase their contributions to the STEM enterprise as a result of some data that has recently shown that students from different underrepresented groups or underrepresented minorities tend to leave STEM degrees at a higher rate than those who aren't. And so there are a couple different ways we try to approach this. One of them by thinking about the preparation of all STEM faculty to be more inclusive and really be more effective in helping students succeed. To also think about how to diversify the faculty pool through recruitment or hiring, but also to really think about institutional change and institutional culture to really value the inclusivity and diversity and the diversity that's there in their student bodies. Now, Aspire has several different arms, and so I represent one of the collaboratives, which is the regional collaborative arm. And what we do is the regional collaboratives are these geographically located connections of 2- and 4-year institutions, so community colleges and universities or other types of colleges in an area. And so right now we have several. There's a couple in California, one in Iowa, a couple in Texas, and one in Florida, as well as I believe we'll be gaining a few more folks by the year's end. Now, together, what we do in the regional collaboratives is we work to share and develop programs and experiences that work towards our 2 big goals. The first being increasing the number and diversity of graduate students, postdocs, and other qualified professionals who are future faculty thinking about teaching a teaching career in STEM at a community college. And then, of course, we also are trying to expand and strengthen the skills of those who already work in the system, as well as future faculty, to really be prepared to teach to the diverse student body, which you'll hear a bit more about in a little bit. One of the things, in order to do this, we do a lot of different things within our region and without. And so within our region, we often create internship programs and other types of experiences, open houses. But we also have events like this where we try to get the word out about this wonderful career option. And I hope and hope that you get to learn more and are inspired to learn more about this option for yourself. And then lastly, before we get on to our main folks, our panelists, I just want to give a little background on what we mean by community college. And so community college definitely are a bit different than maybe a four-year institution, like a university, R1 university that maybe some of you are coming from, where they tend to have smaller class sizes with more individualized attention and support for their students and really focus on students, supporting them and the community. But some of the other things that are kind of characteristic of a community college is there's generally open access. So anyone can apply, anyone can be there. There's, it's open for everyone. But also a lot of people who go there are looking to transfer to a four-year college or university, but not everybody. Because there's some other programs that, end at the community college system, especially some workforce development or skills training. And there are some just non-credit programs like English as a second language or a place where people can learn new skills. So there's really, this brings into this big diverse pool of students who go to these schools to learn for a variety of different reasons. So you get people from all different ages and other types of backgrounds, people from all different minorities or from different groups. And so what you'll see is, again, a diverse student body at most community colleges. Now, when it comes to our goal of trying to increase retention in STEM, there are over 5 million students who enrolled in community colleges as of spring 2019. And so there are a lot of students who enter STEM for the first time at the community college level. So where we can find and be most inclusive there and try to keep students as interested as possible, this is a great starting point. All right, so that's enough of my blurb. Let's hear from our panelists. I'll ask that the panelists go around and introduce themselves and then maybe tell us a little bit about why they were first interested in community college and why did you want to work there? Maybe we'll start with Dale, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, this is Dale Fields. As you can see, it says my pronouns are they, them, there. It says I'm in sort of northern Los Angeles, actually in one of the sort of suburbs, it says, of it says Los Angeles proper. And this is really sort of drew me to community college is the chance to teach. And it says the teaching aspect of it was, this is the part that I thought I could make the most difference in. Back when I was in graduate school, I could look out and I could see America's interest or in not following expert advice, and where that could lead us, and the thought of teaching in STEM and trying to spread how to think with evidence was a really big interest to me, and so I really wanted to do something that way. And so the community college with its emphasis on teaching was a real big interest for me. And so I saw that and actually got an opportunity. This is way far from where I was doing my graduate work in Ohio, but then came to Los Angeles and have never looked back.
Thank you. And how about Kathy?
Well, I had an opposite approach to community college because when I was in school way back in the 70s, I was told I had to be a teacher because that's all women could do at the time. Not all, but I wasn't encouraged to do much more. And I was never going to teach. And I worked in industry. I loved industry. And in the early 90s, I found myself choosing to be home with two young boys. And I decided that that wasn't really quite exactly what I wanted to do all the time. And I managed to get a teaching job at the local community college, teaching one night a week. I was hooked from day one. I was hooked because the students are amazing. They're not all 18, not that 18-year-olds aren't amazing, but you know what I mean. They're just wonderful people. I've been hooked ever since. I had a great mentor, and I turned out getting a full-time job about 4 or 5 years later when both my kids are in school, and tried to manage and juggle all of that for a while. And teaching worked for me. It was hard, but it still worked. So basically, I've been hooked from the very first day, and helping students get to where they want to be in life is just the most rewarding thing ever.
Thank you. And Tom.
Hello to all the graduate students out there. My trek to the community college career was a little bit unexpected, a little bit different than I think most people, but I was working at a research institute in North Dakota at North Dakota State University. Both of my parents became quite ill, and I was faced with the dilemma of trying to do long distance care for my parents from North Dakota while they lived in Texas. Of course, my brothers and sisters were in the forefront, but I felt this urge. I needed to come back to Texas and take a more active hand in their care. So I started looking for faculty positions in chemistry in the state of Texas. And my wife and I said, all right, we're making the move. Where can we go? And there was only one chemistry faculty position in the entire state for the semester that we decided to move. And that was at Midland College, where I'm at now. And so I've been very happy to be here. And I'll go more into that hopefully later, why I'm so happy with this job position. But that's how I got into it. It was not a conscious decision. I'm going to go into teaching at a community college. It was more out of necessity.
Thank you. So I'm so glad that you all shared that with us, and I'm excited to hear the rest of your stories as well. As we go on to the rest of the session, we kind of split this into 3 different parts. And so we'll be touching on or talking about 3 different major topics, and when thinking about faculty duties or responsibilities as a faculty member, also thinking about equity and diversity, especially with the students, and then thinking about faculty life as well. And so at the end of each of these sections, we have some prepared questions for each section, but at the end, we'll also take and stop and ask some participants for your questions and get a chance to answer some of yours. So if any questions come up at any point, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll have Kelly take a look through, and we'll hopefully be able to get to as many as possible, time permitting, throughout the session. Now with that, let's get to our first session. So right now we're going to talk about faculty duties. And so I'm curious about how life at a community college is different than that at a 4-year university, especially in terms of student population. Kathy, you kind of mentioned some of that, and faculty responsibilities and expectations. And so Tom, do you want to answer this particular question? Others are welcome to jump in too after that if you have anything to add.
Quite a bit different than 4-year institutions. For one, the student population tends to be a little bit older for whatever reasons of life. A lot of students start college and then they don't finish, and there's a pause in their life. Maybe they are having children or a career change, and then they decide to resume their college education. And so they've got some life experience that a lot of students at 4-year institutions don't have. And that makes it so interesting and fulfilling to work with these students. There are some 18-year-olds, and there are, in fact, younger students. Maybe you're going to get into early college, high school, but Midland College has a early college, high school campus on our campus. So a large segment of our student population is very young, and that presents another set of challenges. Another thing is our students tend to be commuters. There are some dorms on our campus, but as a percentage of the student population, it's a small percentage. Most of the students are commuters. And so as far as college life, that has a big impact. There aren't that many people on campus here after 5 o'clock, unless, you know, during normal times we have night classes, but so that's different. The economic backgrounds are quite different than at four-year institutions. The student population tends to be less affluent and much more diverse. And that's a wonderful thing from my perspective, but it does present challenges as far as textbooks, computers, and all of the paraphernalia you need to execute a course. So that is another aspect of community colleges. Of course, we're all painting with a broad brush, but those are some generalized trends that immediately come to mind. Faculty responsibilities. Well, at our institution, I can't speak for the other institutions. We've only got one mandate, and that is to teach and teach effectively. And that's it. That's our mandate. That's our expectation. And so we are expected to make sure that students assimilate the information they need to move on in whatever direction they're moving on. Responsibilities. It's primarily surrounding the teaching aspect. And we are expected to engage with the community in whatever capacity we can. We do a lot of outreach, and so that's a responsibility. Those are the expectations. I want to get into it later maybe, but undergraduate research is something that is has a place here at Midland College. And I would like to speak to that at some point, but I'll turn it over to any of the other panelists now.
Thank you. So maybe also you'll get a chance for the other panelists to also speak about this. But I want to ask our next question. And so Kathy, you mentioned you have experience being both a part-time and a full-time faculty member. And so I'm curious, and there are some questions in the chat too, but what's the difference between them, particularly at the responsibilities or your duties? Some of the questions here were, oh goodness, I just saw them. But what type of commitment is involved in a part-time versus a full-time, and what are more common? And so I am curious what your thoughts are on this.
Well, I can also add the fact that I retired from my full-time position last July, may I add, just in the nick of time. And it's been such a pleasure to continue to teach as a part-time faculty. So I have, again, experienced the best of both worlds here. So our full-time faculty will teach a full load. So a full load would mean 2 or 3 lectures, including the labs. Most of the people I know who teach at a community college, who teach chemistry or lab science, teach the lab and the lecture, which is a pleasure because we get to know our students quite well because we see them at least 7 hours a week, 4 hours in lecture, 4 hours in lab, or 3 hours in lab. And not to mention the office hours, which many students like to take advantage of. They tend to find us pretty reachable and approachable. We do not do research. Having said that, a lot of our faculty are involved in research on their own with another institution. Not a lot, a few, I should say that. Some of them are mentoring students to go into research positions through grants like Exito and can't think of all the symbols right now. We have a large number of part-time faculty. Our part-time faculty, we call them Rhodes Scholars because they tend to go to all of the community college up and down the I-5 corridor and even across 84 a little bit. And they teach to get a full load. They'll teach at 2 or 3 different colleges, and they're traveling a lot. Their office is a file or a box in their car. It can be very stressful to get enough hours to have enough money to live on. So if you're looking to live on that money, just plan a lot of traveling. I was able to do that early on in my life. And I will also say that 4 of our current 10 full-time faculty across our 4-campus district started out as part-time faculty. I might even add that I hired them first as part-time faculty who managed to get the full-time positions in a very competitive field. It wasn't like, oh, we just hire our part-timers. We hire people and they get to apply for the full-time job, which is always a nationwide search. So it's been really great to mentor the part-time faculty members that come in. Full-time members, faculty members are expected to attend meetings, a lot of committee meetings, be on committees, push the college further, do outreach like, I used to go to the local grade school and do little chemistry demos for students, things like that. Maybe participate in going to the local high schools and talk about taking classes at PCC. I like to show them that, taking chemistry is not as scary as it seems. So I, kind of loosen them up a little bit. Part-time faculty members aren't expected to do that. However, I will say part-time faculty members who participate in such things get those little check marks next to their name when they are applying for those full-time jobs. So even though it's not expected part of your position, it can be something you can do to, strengthen your application process. I think that's enough for now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that definitely is helpful to hear. And so I have another question. Dale, maybe if you could start us out on this, is what you appreciate most about teaching at a community college and what you find most challenging. I know you said that you were really interested in teaching, and so I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
Well, one of the things that I found in graduate school when I asked to teach a class, a full-on, not TAing, but doing a full-on class. And one of the things that I really found is that the student population was very bimodal. Either the students were already going to succeed in my class no matter what, or the students were there waiting so that they could get a degree and then go home and just take over daddy's, used car sales lot. There wasn't really a middle ground to that. I was going to be able just to teach them, or rather, it wouldn't matter if I was there teaching, they would still succeed anyway, or that they weren't interested. And so that really left me feeling very negative with returns to like my agency is like, didn't matter what kind of a teacher I was. But the beautiful thing about teaching a community college is that there are lots of students that will be great college students, but they don't have the right preparation yet. And so the fact that I could be good at my job and actually make a difference was something that was the really grabbing at that community college. And that's the reason why I'm still there. But that's also challenging because you have to be on your game. I mean, this is a full focus, work that you do. And you need to be good at the skill of teaching. You need to be there. You need to be always paying attention, engaged with your students. And therefore, being able to reach the ones that may start to slide and may start to think that they're not capable. So it's both the great part and it's also the most challenging part at the same time.
Thank you. Kathy, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Well, you know, I totally agree with them, and it is really amazing. My philosophy on teaching has been the people, the four-year schools are what, top 20, top 25 students in the country. At the community college, you noted at the beginning, we are open enrollment. So we have a pretty wide range of students. And maybe this is under the myth to debunk. We do have some of the top 10% of students in the country attending community college for a number of reasons. So we have to, you know, try to teach to everybody. And we do a pretty good job at it. We figured it out. I think the top 10% are going to do great no matter how well or how poorly I teach. I'm trying to get those people in the middle, those C students into the B range and maybe reaching a little higher, and the B students into that A range and maybe reaching a little higher, instead of trying to, when I know that we don't do that quite so much at the four-year schools, try to filter them out or weed out students. So I believe that we really work hard to nurture, to care, and inspire our students to go on rather than weed them out of sciences.
Thank you. Tom, did you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that Dale and Kathy hit the nails on the head. I'm going to add a couple of extra things from a different kind of perspective. One of the things I appreciate most about teaching at a community college is it's pretty low pressure. People ask me, a lot of my peers, oh, well, how do you like teaching at a community college versus a university? And I say, well, I've been on vacation for 15 years. It's not work to me. I love every day, and it's fun. The second thing is, just to reiterate what Dale says, is making a difference in the world. And just to kind of come from a different angle, over 50% of all the students, college students in the United States, are at community colleges. There's a lot of studies, at least 100, that show that retention and completion are amplified when undergraduates engage in some kind of research their first 2 years. And that can take on different colors, but the problem is that so many community colleges don't have research at their institution. And so as a country, in my view, we're kind of riding off that 50% of the college population in a sense, because we are not putting resources to encourage retention and completion to the fullest extent we can. And that's my opinion, but I think the statistics bear it out. So that's a challenge, is to change this mindset that research is not done at community colleges. And that, like I said, there's different flavors of that, inquiry-based experiments in the regular academic labs, full-blown research projects, and et cetera. There's a continuum of different types of undergraduate research. But if we don't incorporate some form of it, we're in danger of losing a lot of the students that are at community colleges. And just one other thing, so many of our students are first in family college students. In other words, they don't have a pedigree from their family or a tradition from their family about what college is. So they come on campus and they don't know what to expect. They don't know how the game is played because nobody's told them. They don't have those resources. And so that's another place where faculty have to step up to the plate and mentor these students to get them over the anxieties and difficulties that they have. So Dale and Kathy, they said it a lot better than I can, but I just wanted to interject those other two aspects.
I think those are really great points, and how there's like a multitude of different ways you can help your students get that experience. And so I'm glad that you brought that up as well. And so kind of just moving on to our last question here before we get to our participant questions. What's something that you thought was true about teaching at a community college and ended up not being true, or any myths that you want to debunk right now? So Tom, you mentioned you hadn't originally planned at teaching at community college, and that research was something that wasn't as valued at the community college system necessarily. Or maybe Dale, if you'd like to jump in too, you're welcome to do so.
That's right. Before I got to community college, I came from graduate school. I had all the preconceptions that probably most of the audience has about what a community college is. Some of my preconceptions that turned out to be dead wrong are that all the students have low expectations. All the students are low achievers. There's no research at community colleges. And every one of those three aspects were dead wrong. And some of the most highly motivated students I've ever encountered are at community colleges. And they're on a mission. They really are. They are on a mission to get to a station in life, whatever that may be. Maybe to become a nurse, maybe to become a mechanic, maybe to become a doctor. I mean, the students at a community college, they were on a mission. And that's why it's so rewarding. And so those were three big ones, preconceptions that I had that turned out to be just dead wrong.
Well, I'd like to expand on one of those, because just to make this upfront and explicit, it says my graduate advisor was not particularly happy about me seeking out a community college job. And it says that was because it was a lower status job, is that I wouldn't be able to get by, and it says at a community college. That it says I would be dealing with, it says students that it says couldn't handle, it says a 4-year, it says institution. And I says, I love my graduate advisor, but that's BS. It says, and so it really is that it says students are, it says, entering into the college system, as it says, Thomas mentioned, it says that we have so many first-generation college students that they don't know how to college, and so that needs extra preparation. But says we've got students. I love what it said about that the most motivated students that we can find, because that is exactly the kind of students I'm dealing with. A lot of times, again, they don't know how to get there, but they are interested in there, focused on getting there. And it says when I got there, the morale of it says people at Pierce College was high because we were engaged in in meaningful work. And it says it was just a great place to be. I mean, yeah, my graduate advisor said, it says, Dale, it says, I know you're taking this job, but I just want you to know if it doesn't work out, we can get like a 1-year postdoc for you so you can start applying for real jobs. It says over in pure research. And it was like, oh, it says, thank you, but yeah, I'm actually happy here. So it says that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that you can actually be successful. And it says at this. And it says, I also want to say, it's actually financially good. This is as well. It says my advisor was nervous about this, but I'm a homeowner in Los Angeles. This is, and so that's an accomplishment, but I did that through a community college job. So it says this is something that you can be successful. It says family at, it says work at, it says meaningful, it says action.
May I just add really quickly, another thing that we have to debunk is we have to take our students and debunk their mentality thinking, I don't deserve to go to graduate school, or I'm not good enough to go to follow this field. It's not all of them, but you know, a certain percentage of them who never thought about going further with their degree. And when I, you know, mentor a student or see one of my colleagues mentoring students and hear that they've gone off to tier 1 schools to do graduate work, and we hear from them later, you know, I got my PhD, or I'm in medical school, or I just graduated from nursing school. It is so rewarding, and things that they may not have thought about. So another myth we debunk is in our own students' heads that you can do this, and this is a direction for you to go in.
Just one last thing. I don't know if my mic is on. And I'm not sure if this is part of the question or not, but there is a stigma surrounding community colleges, both at the faculty level and at the student level. And you have to fight this stigma daily. And it is changing for the better. I'm happy to report it is changing. Our mentality as a nation is changing towards community colleges, but we're not there yet. And so we have to keep pushing the ball forward. As Dale says, you know, the academia, oh, well, you're going to teach at a community college, your life is over. So metaphorically speaking, and the students feel the same way. Oh, I have to go to community college because that's all I can afford, or that's the only place that I can get in. And so I'm not worthy. And boy, when they realize that that's not the case, that makes your life complete in a sense, because you see in their eyes, hey, I have a path forward. I can do this. I am a viable college student, and it's just so rewarding. I can't describe it.
Okay, this might be old school or outdated, but we're the Rodney Dangerfield of college teachers.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, all three of you. That is really wonderful and inspiring to hear. And I'm seeing some wonderful things in the chat too, just people's experiences in the community college system and how validated some folks feel about, you know, talking about the different experiences that students have and really being aware and thinking of those things. So thank you all so much for bringing those out. I'm going to now turn it over to Kelly, who's chosen a couple different questions from our audience, our participants in the chat. She picked out a few that we won't necessarily get to later, but we will come back to some of the other questions that might not get answered. So Kelly, take it away.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, so in listening to the panelists, I tried to choose a few that were not quite answered or still with the intro to community college idea behind it. And one participant asked, you know, they want to teach a diverse array of courses and is wondering at community college, will they get stuck teaching just intro and then the same 2 or 3 courses every year? So if any of the panelists want to.
Yeah. So every college is different, and it's highly dependent on who the faculty are at that institution. But I can only speak to Texas. Texas, by law, we are prohibited from teaching junior and senior level courses. So that limits your the number of courses that you can teach right off the bat. You are doing freshman and sophomore courses. And In chemistry, that includes intro to chemistry, which is for primarily non-majors in science. Then you've got general chemistry 1, general chemistry 2, organic 1, organic 2, and that's pretty much it. We used to be able to teach analytical chemistry, but the state of Texas decided to take that away from us. So we can't teach analytical anymore. Yeah, you are limited in the courses that you can teach. You're gonna, but one thing that our faculty does, and I applaud it greatly, is we do a rotation. So you're not gonna teach the same course every semester. You're gonna teach a different course every semester. And that has two effects. One, you don't get bored. Two, you don't get stale. You're not in a rut teaching the same thing over and over and over again. And three, and this is really important, if a faculty member goes down, either through illness or jury duty or something like that, if you've taught a particular course before, you can step in and cover for that faculty member, no problem. And so I think it's really important to have a faculty rotation on courses. But like I said, it depends on the school and the particular department.
So yes, Tom, you're absolutely right. It totally depends. And if I was starting out and could get a part-time job at a four-year school, I would try that and a part-time job at a community college and see which I preferred. I think I know that I'd prefer the community college no matter what I tried, but that's me. I also think that it's really important to, while you're teaching, I think it's important to teach part-time and then try out a few colleges, try them on for size, so to speak. So if you're at a two-year school and they're only giving you that Chem 100, that intro to chemistry one-term course, and they're not moving you around and helping you to get into other courses, ask why. How am I doing? Can I do it better? And if they're just kind of more tiered, you might want to try the full-time position at a different school rather than trying to fight your way in to be able to teach organic chemistry eventually. Just saying.
Okay, maybe another question we have for the panelists is sort of touching on what Kathy had just mentioned about part-time versus full-time. One of the questions was, what are the different time commitments involved in teaching part-time versus full-time? Someone had asked, are we meant to work weekends if it's full-time?
I think a big answer to that is pre-COVID-19 or post-COVID-19. Pre-COVID-19, no, you were not expected to work on weekends. Often faculty do, but you weren't expected to. But I've found that since COVID-19 and moving courses online, the administration expects you to respond to questions within 24 hours. And most faculty try to do that anyway, but they're making it more of a stipulation. And so that means you're pretty much tied to your email 24/7. And of course, we're still sorting out all of this, all of these things that has to do with online teaching, but that's kind of where it's at right now is, in the online teaching world, you're going to be at least engaging somewhat online during the weekends, even if it's from your cell phone.
Dale, do you want to answer?
So this will actually get into a little bit of some, I think, a question is later on, but one of the things that community college life involves is sort of designing what you want to do and how much you want to engage. And so, yes, we've been tracking it. So my spouse and I have been tracking how much I've been working, and my slacker week was 40 hours. But that's But that's because there's a lot of things that I want to participate in. So just the official required time, you should be overall, yes, pre-COVID, you'd be able to do that on a regular weekend and still have a great deal of time for other aspects of your life. Do you want to get involved and do more things? Absolutely, then that can fill out and you can be organizing other bits, and this is getting even more involved. This is with what's going on. So it really is much more of a freedom to design your own work experience.
So all this online stuff, everybody's freaking out, but I've been teaching online, fully online, including a lab at home, using kids, pre-nursing course for 12 years now. And it's been a wonderful, it started out as being, oh my gosh, this can possibly work. And of course, now we know it can work. And I actually was able to go to Italy for 6 weeks and teach my full load from Rome, Venice, and all online. My students are all here, but I was there. It was a wonderful opportunity. So yes, we do work weekends, but if I work weekends, then I can take Monday morning to go to the gym, or I can take Tuesday morning to tour, the Coliseum. So Dale is right, Thomas is right. We are expected to do a lot of work, but we can manage the time we do it. We're not quite so rigid. I don't know if I could go to an industrial 9-to-5 job anymore.
So just to kind of amplify that, I saw one of the questions in the chat was what kind of salary range? Well, community college professors are going to make about 25% less than university professors. And that's without tenure. So you're not teaching at a community college for the money. You're teaching at a community college for quality of life, relatively stress-free, making a difference in the world, and feeding some part of your inner being, whether that be the relationships you build with students or research or whatever your DNA has. Community college can feed that beast. And so you're definitely not going to do it for the money. So hopefully, but there are trade-offs. Like I said, I tell people I've been on vacation for 15 years because I have fun every day. So it's what do you value in life? If you're a money person, you probably don't want to teach at a community college.
Yeah. Thank you all for those questions and for asking such great questions and for answering them as well. I think I've heard too that depends on where you're at as well, because I know in California maybe it's a bit more lucrative in some places depending on where you're at. But I think that's a really great point. It's a labor of love in a lot of places.
Sure.
Thank you. So I want to move on to our next piece here and really thinking about equity and diversity. And you already mentioned the students and how much you love them. And I'm curious, what are some of the efforts that are being taken at your institution, especially when thinking about promoting the success of our students from underrepresented groups or underrepresented minorities? And so what's going on in order to help improve that retention in STEM? And so maybe we can start with Dale on this question.
Thank you. So Um, the institution I'm at, Pierce College, is a Hispanic serving institution. And in fact, most of the Los Angeles community colleges are minority majority institutions. Despite that, our institution of Pierce is actually the whitest of any of our 9. And so one thing that is a challenge is put out is that the representation of faculty is not what the students see. And so it's one of the biggest challenges that, for example, if you have time, I'll try to put it into the chat, but there is something called the team up report. This is in physics and astronomy. And it's about dealing with these practical issues. And one of the primary challenges they found is dealing with the concept of having an identity in STEM, having an identity that they can see themselves as a scientist, see themselves as an engineer. And so there's other actions that have to be done in order to take care of that. And so it says part of that is that if you can't do that through your own representation as an instructor, that says there are other kinds of support services like organizing school events to bring in people from around the community. So whenever we have like STEM days, we are looking to bring in people from this is like JPL this is in the area, but we also want to make sure that we bring in people that represent the diversity of our own students. The Society of Hispanic Engineers is a group that we've worked with in terms of providing representation there. But it's also in terms of our institution working on this retention, providing support services. You're more likely to find tutoring, for example, at a community college than in a 4-year college, an organized program. And so beyond that, this is for STEM in particular. Ultimately, it's on to the faculty. This is to a very large degree to build representations. Through how they actually teach, how they reach out to students, and how they value the information that students can bring in. Even something like recognizing that students have prior knowledge that will actually be useful to them in these classes, that STEM is not some faraway thing that is separate from their daily existence, is a helpful technique. And it says, even just, it may seem silly, but there parts of this are that when I went to college, all of the textbooks were still that post-World War II, every physics problem is a gun that's being fired or a cannon that's exploding or something. And it's like, oh, can we have like something else that represents someone that's not? This is a 27-year-old coming back from World War II and entering into the college system. And so part of it is the intentional choices from the faculty in deciding what kinds of questions they have, deciding what kinds of, what they look at in terms of the examples in their text. This is what they can do in terms of, for example, in our life sciences program, addressing scientific racism directly in their mainline biology courses. Or even like using native names for the various like plants that are around for their botany classes. These are all things that can actually give a sense of that a student belongs in the program, that a student's identity is valued in that program.
Thank you. I think those are all such wonderful suggestions and some really great points that you make too of one of the things that Aspire is working towards, trying to create a faculty body that really mirrors the students that they serve at community colleges, especially. And so I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm going to just move on to the next question, but it's tied to that previous question about thinking about remote teaching. And you kind of already talked a little bit about COVID-19, but how did this impact your students? And so what were you or your institution able to do to support students through all of this? And you kind of already mentioned that it's changed your responsibilities a little, working a little bit more. But I'm curious to see, how were your students impacted, and what were things that you were able to do to support them?
Well, from our perspective, this is a work in progress. So I can only give you a snapshot of what we've done so far. It's not going to be the end result for sure. From a faculty perspective, all of us, and I'm sure this is universal, we're moving content online. And that is a huge, monumental task. Huge, monumental task. Our department head has mandated that we pre-record all of our lectures. So think about that. Pre-recording every single lecture for every single class in one semester. It's a killer. And the end product of online courses is not finalized. It's a work in progress. Faculty are going to get better as time goes on. But all of this has, in my opinion, increased the anxiety, both from a faculty standpoint and from the student standpoint. The students have increased anxiety. The faculty have increased anxiety. The administrators have increased anxiety. And it's in large part because of the unknown. And so some of the things that we've done at our institution to deal with that are we have several hotlines that students can call. So I've got a problem with my computer. Who are you going to call? Well, you're going to call the computer hotline. I've got a problem with getting access to Canvas or Blackboard. Well, there's a hotline for that. So the students can call, oh, I can't connect to the platform. There's a hotline for, we're also doing the at-home lab kits in some instances. And the supply chain has been disrupted in the middle of the semester. So how do you deal with that? You're ready to start doing labs and half the students don't have their lab kits. So there's a huge amount of uneasiness and some anxiety on everybody's part. And so what we have to do for each other is say, okay, we're going to get through this. Don't worry, we're going to get through this. And so part of what we're doing is just being a sounding board for all of this anxiety. Listening and trying to lower the students' anxiety about their course and getting that course content and performing. And so that's one thing. Another thing from an instructor's point of view is you've got to be fluid, you've got to be flexible. And at the beginning of the semester, I put out a schedule. All right, this homework is due on this date, the homework due on this date, exam 1 is on this date. And lo and behold, I got jury duty and some other things. And so my students were going ballistic. Oh my goodness, this is a disaster. And you just have to say, hey, look, don't worry. We're going to recover. It's going to be okay. And, but we're on a trajectory. We're not at the finish line yet. And so it's hard to have all the answers right at this moment in time.
Yeah. Anyone have anything else to add on either of these two questions before we get to a couple of the participant questions? All right, let's hear from our participants. Kelly, do you have one or two questions for us?
Yeah, we have two. Dale started answering one in the chat about tenure track, but since it did come up several times, one of the questions is there a tenure track in community college? If so, how does it work? Does it involve research or simply depend on years of teaching? So could you speak to what it looks like at your community college?
Oh, here, this is I already started, this is replying a little bit, so let me go ahead and continue on a little bit for the Los Angeles Community College District. Now, one of the things that Katie mentioned a little bit is that this is very much dependent upon whether you are a union state or a non-union state. That's going to be a major impact when I'm saying. So California is a state that recognizes unions. And so therefore actually this is AFT 1521, which is our local district, renegotiates things on every 3 years. So we have quite strong protections. And our union and our tenure process is a 4-year process. So person is hired, and then at the end of their first, second, third, and fourth years, they undergo a comprehensive evaluation. And this is other instructors, at least 3 other instructors coming to their classes, looking at how they're teaching. This is looking at their reflections upon being a community college teacher, what they've learned, what they're going to try, what they aspired to and fell on their flat in their faces with and are going to modify and try again next time. These combined with like student responses as well, student surveys. And so that process lasts for 4 years. And then this is if the instructor keeps meeting those, and the majority of ours do, because it is supposed to be a way to help the instructors be better, not to say it says no, let's throw you away. It says and get someone else. We're looking for people that are going to try to improve. And beyond that, actually, once there's a tenure process, then the instructor is guaranteed a certain number of hours of courses. This is to teach. It says every semester for good behavior, and and being good as a teacher. And so it says in our case, it says we just have that initial setup of our tenure process, and then like pay scales and goes on. We have sort of like a yearly graduated thing. This is to improve. But that is the normal tenure track for full timers. We have something called seniority for our part-time instructors, that if they teach more than either like 4 semesters straight, or it says 4 times within a 4-year period, 4 semesters within a 4-year period, they are added onto our seniority list. And at that point, part-time instructors are guaranteed teaching at like the 3, 6, 5 or so hour level. Usually one of the nice things about our union contract is that it actually tries to keep part-time instructors employed enough to qualify for benefits, which happens for us at 6 hours of classes a week.
The situation at Midland College is drastically different. We do not have tenure in any form or fashion. Every faculty member, from the most senior faculty to the first year faculty, is on a 1-year contract. And we sign those 1-year contracts every August. That being said, you have to really mess up for them to not renew your contract. And you have to do something really bad. So it's just a different system, different expectation. And I can say being on a 1-year contract, it makes you want to put your best out there every single semester. because they always have that option of not renewing your contract. So we are always on our toes, so to speak.
In Portland, it's just slightly different. We have, we don't have tenure here. In Washington State, they have a 3-year tenure track program. Ours is a 3-year probationary situation. Again, you've got to really mess up to not be moved on. And we do in Portland, and I believe, yeah, and in Washington, we're both union states. So I'm right on the borderline of what, I actually live in Washington, but work in Oregon. So our, the laws are slightly different, but we're both union states. We both have either some sort of tenure or probationary work you have to do. And no, it doesn't include research. And one of the things I might add, if you send a letter when you're applying to community college discussing all about your research, that tells the people reading the letter that you're not aware of what the community college is doing. So add the research part at the end as an addendum, but focus on the teaching part in your letter, cover letter.
Yeah, I'll just amplify what Kathy just said. Your sole purpose in life at a community college is to teach. And if you do research, you might get a pat on the back and say, oh, that's great that you're doing that, but you don't get any extra money. You don't get any course comp time, none, zero. And so you do the research because it's in your DNA. It's your love of the process of the activity. And I have to do it. It's like breathing. I cannot not do it. And so, but that being said, I put in extra time, a lot of extra time. That's not compensated for.
Thank you for those questions, especially about your experiences in the different process in the different states. Sort of circling back a little bit to the inclusion section that we had, and speaking about your experiences, one of the participants had a question about how do you find ways to relate to your students and understand their unique backgrounds. The participant says, for example, coming from a small town, they relate to students who struggle in classes of 300 plus people now. So the question is like, how do you handle the diverse backgrounds and how do you make the students feel welcome?
Keep in mind, we have small classes. My largest class, if we met on campus, would have 48 students in it. Online, our largest classes have 24-ish students in them. I think the key is most of the people I know who teach at the community college come from somewhere similar to mine, grew up poor, struggled, managed to get through. Maybe I struggled to get my A's and B's and other grades. And I think I can relate to students who struggle a lot. But the key is to ask. In a Zoom meeting, ask your students how they're doing. On campus, ask your students how they're doing. When they come to your office hours, how are you doing? Why are you here? What are you looking for? Just ask a lot.
Yeah, the humility, I think, is one of the primary things that we need to consider, is that we need to think about where our students are coming from, and this is, try to educate ourselves. So one of the things that's very much in the community college system is professional development, is constantly becoming better informed. It says as to what's going on. It says for our students what kind of challenges they might face, but also not just the deficits that go on for students, but really what advantages they bring. And it says is that things, if students are coming from a multilingual household, what kind of benefit can that provide them in STEM? With the rapid ability, for example, to swap their mindset and think it's quickly jumping back and forth ways. So part of it is always engaging. I would say it's in also professional development. In addition to listening to students themselves, listen to other people. Always go out and seek out research as to what exactly is the lives of other people are like, and how to best reach other people.
Thank you so much. I just want to move on to our third part here. I'm realizing we only have 15 minutes left. Time goes by way too fast. So I just want to kind of ask a couple of different questions to make sure that we get to them, but especially about mentoring and advising students. And so unlike, in R1 where you have a traditional lab where you might be mentoring students, how do you mentor students, or what kind of advising or support do you provide students as a faculty member at a community college?
First on the mentoring, at Millen College, we have several ways to do that. We just instituted institution-wide where we have small cohorts of incoming freshmen, and they are paired with a mentor to kind of be the coach, so to speak, a college coach, to help them. Most of them are first generation college students. And so this small cohort, 4 or 5 students, is paired with a faculty member to just help them along or navigate all of the ins and outs of being a college student. Second, in chemistry, we have the chemistry club. And so students can participate in that, and they get a lot of one-on-one with the professors if they're in the chemistry club. And we do a lot of outreach. We do shows for school kids, elementary school kids and stuff like that. Any students who participate in research, of course, they get a lot of in-depth mentoring. Advising, we have our official counselors on campus, and they do most of the advising. And but I have a lot of students that come in during office hours and say, should I take this course or this course? And so I do a lot of unofficial advising, and I think that's how it should be, but it's not required advising. So I'm sure the others have similar experiences.
Kathy or Dale, would you like to jump in on that, or any other thoughts on advising or mentoring?
Absolutely. We have these, to talk about, the little connection to research quickly is that we have these independent study courses, which we are allowed to teach for free because, it is an option for us, but we can do whatever kind of research we want with students. And that involves a lot of the advising process for, okay, you like the classes. Now let's see, do you like the actions of being a STEM major with this? And so that's where a lot of my advising and mentoring comes in, and where I get a lot of astronomy majors from then going on and doing an independent study with me. So that's one of the primary forms with that. But it says, mentioned the clubs and so forth, for example, a lot of us are advisors of different student clubs. This can be. So I'm advisor of the STEM club and also our Queer Straight Alliance at Pierce. And so a lot of the advising goes through those channels as well. So I just want to reiterate and support that.
Thank you. I think that's a good segue into the next part. And so maybe Kathy, you can start us off there of beyond the classroom and maybe mentoring. What other kind of things are you involved in on campus? And so what's your experience with campus life? Do you, advise clubs like you said, or are there other things that you're involved in as well? So Kathy, do you want to start us off?
And we had a science club that I was a advisor for, and somebody asked about tutoring. Does a college provide tutoring or pay you to tutor? Well, the college does have a great tutoring system. I would spend my office hours and then some in the tutor center because students felt more comfortable approaching me there rather than in my office. Um, you know, a lot of things like just going to the cafeteria and staying there and sitting down and eating and letting people come in and walk by and say hi and just being visible. We have a student outreach garden that was fun to work with. Oh, the good old days of being on campus. You know, now my experience on college life is basically I mentor and support and help other faculty members who are changing to online courses. And one piece of advice I have for anybody considering going into a community college teaching career, if you can get any training in teaching online, this is a good time to do it, get certified, whatever it takes, and bring that with you to an interview.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Kathy just said, training about any software platforms, Blackboard, Canvas, or if you can get a mentor to show you the instructor side of those platforms, that would be so helpful to you stepping in as a teacher at a community college. But there's other platforms, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, which we're all part of now. There are little nuances to these platforms that I don't know. I use these platforms, but I don't know all the ins and outs yet. So becoming proficient at online discourse and learn about as many online software packages that you can, how to import graphics, how to do videos, how to edit those videos, all of those different, I'm not very tech savvy. And so most of the audience is much more tech savvy than I am, but every single knowledge about different software packages that you can bring to the table is to your advantage and looks good on a resume.
Dale, is there anything you want to add about campus life? What other things are you involved in on campus?
So part of this is, again, this is one of the things that I mentioned earlier was just how you can sort of build your own kind of career as things that you want to do. And so people are happy if you want to go out and just start developing other programs and other things across campus. So when our campus had a lack of professional development, I decided I didn't like that. And so I went out and started building a community of practice at our Pierce College. And that has morphed into all sorts of different things. This is with actually one of our peer online course review, POCR. If you haven't dealt with this, if you want to see, look for POCR. And that's actually going to have, that has lots of interesting resources on how to teach better online as well. But it's bringing in experts like that. It's working on, it's aspiring to allyship. It's for our students of color. This is working on better on this. This is all stuff that you can just decide that you want to work on and then just talk to people and get people on board and make it happen. And so you have the opportunity if you want to just silo yourself and just hide yourself away and not get involved. You can successfully do that. But if you want to actually engage in the campus, you can make your life what you want your life at that campus to be. And that's one of the freedoms that I really love about community college life.
Just 2 seconds, you make your experience what you want it to be, exactly what Dale just said. On our campus, we have a lot of sports. And so going to those games and being in the audience for those games is part of the campus life here. It's kind of blasphemy. We don't have a football team at Midland College, but we've got all the other sports. And we have all the orchestras and choirs and all of that. They perform on a regular basis on campus. And so if you can be in the audience for all of those performances. So your experience of campus culture is what you make out of it. And it varies from campus to campus, but as Dale said, you make your own world.
Thank you. And so now for kind of our last question here is thinking about what kind of support that you got or might someone need to seek out in order to be successful. There was a question in the chat earlier about, what kind of support there was for faculty on a campus. And so, Kathy, I don't know if you want to start us off with this question.
I had a great mentor. So the first person who hired me as an adjunct became a wonderful mentor, and she's a dear friend now. But for chemistry, there's American Chemical Society, ACS, and the 2YC3 is a 2-year college chemistry consortium. And we host seminars. Check it out, 2yc3.org. I'll type that into the chat in a minute. And there are all kinds of ways to get trained, to learn how to teach, to sit in on other people's classrooms, to see, review your student evaluation and see, thanks, Katie, and to see what it is all about. So there's a lot of ways that you can get help. Mostly just go to the faculty members you work with and ask them to sit in on your class and say, okay, what do you suggest? What do you recommend?
Thank you. Anything else anyone wants to add that maybe we didn't get to yet today?
Let me just add one thing, get it in there. Online teaching is a big force right now. Even if COVID-19 subsides, online teaching is not going away. It's a permanent fixture in all of university and community college teaching now. So you better get well versed in it, no matter what level of academia you're going to. I would just mention that there is a program called Quality Matters. And it's become a de facto standard for constructing online courses. So here at Midland College, prior to COVID-19, the college would not allow any online courses that were not certified by Quality Matters to be executed. But because of the catastrophe that COVID-19 has been, they've given a pass on that for the time being. But I guarantee you within a year or so, they're going to come back and tell everybody, hey, you got to get your course certified by Quality Matters. And so I would just put that out there for all the graduate students out there. You better start reading about Quality Matters or something to that effect, because it's going to be a required certification for your online courses.
And to expand upon that, says Thomas is absolutely right. Says when I got my online certification, it was through something connected to Quality Matters, and that was always the resources. But one of the big things that I was taught, and I'm hoping this is still not being pushed out, this is through STEM culture, but there is still the idea that teaching is an ability rather than a skill. And if you can already sort of decode that into fixed mindset versus growth mindset, then you are already ahead of me when I got into teaching. It says recognize that there are ways to train yourself to do better at teaching and to develop those skills. This is online skills, this is in general, this is in the classroom if we ever can get back into the classroom. So do seek those out. Do seek out things and programs from like the education department at your local college to see what can be done in terms of being able to have those professional pedagogical skills.
Well said.
Well, oh, thank you. I just want to thank everyone. I'm aware of the time. I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you all so much to our panelists. We have some emails up here. You can feel free to reach out at any time. I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't add yours, but if you want to, you can add it to the chat. And I, again, just want to give a huge thank you to all of our panelists for their wonderful, wonderful advice and their insights. And thank you all for joining us. And hopefully we'll get to see you next time at our next session in a few weeks, where we'll talk more about getting hired and what you need to do in order to get hired at a full-time position. And with that, I'll stick around for any questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question in the chat, but we really appreciate you coming. Thank you.